The Villages, Florida was supposed to be bulletproof, America's largest retirement community, one of the fastest-growing cities in the country, a place where homes sold in days, golf carts replaced cars, and retirees believed they'd locked in the perfect version of the American dream. But in 2026, cracks are showing, and they're getting harder to ignore. Home listings are sitting longer, price cuts are becoming common, HOA fees are rising, insurance costs are exploding, and behind the smiling billboards and promotional videos, many residents are quietly asking the same question. What is actually happening here? This isn't a normal slowdown. The Villages was built on a very specific formula. Constant in-migration of retirees, ever-rising home prices, and an endless supply of buyers selling homes up north and paying cash. As long as that pipeline stayed open, prices only moved in one direction. But now, that pipeline is under pressure. Rising interest rates, falling home equity in feeder states, insurance shocks, medical costs, aging infrastructure, and a growing number of homeowners trying to exit at the same time. Here's the part most headlines won't tell you. The Villages doesn't need a housing crash to be in trouble. It only needs demand to slow while supply keeps growing. And that's exactly what's happening. And when retirees feel squeezed, they don't upgrade. They sell. In this video, we're breaking down what's really happening in the Villages, why prices are under pressure, and why this community may be far more vulnerable than most people realize. This isn't fear-mongering. It's math, demographics, and market mechanics colliding in real time. Before we get into it, hit like, subscribe, and share this video so more people understand what's unfolding. Not after the damage is done, but while there's still time to prepare. Now let's talk about the real reasons the Villages is starting to wobble. Topic 1. Supply is spiking while buyers are disappearing. For years, the Villages operated on a simple reality. There were always more buyers than sellers. Homes didn't sit. Listings disappeared fast. Prices climbed because demand felt endless. But in 2026, that balance has flipped, and it's the single biggest reason prices are cracking. Inventory is rising fast. More homeowners are listing at the same time, and that's not an accident. The Villages is aging. Many original residents are now in their late 70s and 80s. Health changes, mobility issues, and estate sales are pushing more homes onto the market all at once. This isn't a trickle. It's a demographic wave. At the same time, new construction never slowed down. Developers kept building under the assumption that yesterday's demand would last forever. But now resale homes are competing directly with brand new builds, incentives included. That puts immediate pressure on prices. And here's the problem. The buyer pool has shrunk. Most buyers in the Villages come from out of state, often selling homes in the Midwest or Northeast to fund a Florida purchase. But those feeder markets are no longer booming. Home values up north have softened. Some retirees expected to arrive with cash and equity. But that equity is smaller now, or tied up in homes that won't sell quickly. Higher interest rates also matter more than people think. Even retirees use financing. When rates jump, monthly costs jump with them. And fixed-income buyers get cautious fast. Demand doesn't vanish overnight, but it slows just enough to break momentum. And once momentum breaks, the psychology changes. Sellers who expected bidding wars are now seeing price cuts. Homes are sitting for weeks, sometimes months. That sends a signal. Other sellers rush to list before prices fall further. More listings mean more competition. More competition means more price pressure. This is how crashes actually start, not with panic, but with imbalance. The Villages was built to grow forever. But markets don't care about marketing brochures or past performance. When supply rises faster than demand, prices adjust. And in 2026, that adjustment is no longer theoretical. It's happening in real time. Topic 2. Insurance, HOA fees, and hidden costs are crushing retirees. Housing prices don't crash in isolation. They crash when ownership becomes unaffordable. And in the Villages, the real pressure isn't the mortgage. It's everything else. Insurance is the biggest shock. Florida's insurance crisis has hit retirees especially hard. Premiums are rising sharply, even for inland communities like the Villages. Some homeowners are seeing policies double or triple. Others are forced into last resort coverage with fewer protections and higher costs. For retirees on fixed incomes, that's devastating. When insurance jumps by thousands per year, there's no easy way to absorb it. You don't work more. You cut expenses, or you sell. Then come the HOA fees. The Villages runs on massive community infrastructure. Golf courses, recreation centers, pools, roads, and amenities. Maintaining all of that gets more expensive every year. Labor costs rise. Materials rise. Insurance for the HOA rises. And those costs get passed directly to residents. Monthly fees climb quietly, but relentlessly. What used to feel manageable starts to feel tight, especially for residents who bought years ago expecting stable costs. And once special assessments enter the picture, the math changes completely. One surprise assessment can push someone from comfortable to we need to leave. Property taxes add another layer. As assessments rose during the boom, tax bills followed. Even if home values soften now, taxes don't always fall quickly. That lag keeps pressure on owners. Put it all together: insurance, HOA fees, taxes, utilities, healthcare costs, and suddenly owning a home in the villages isn't cheap anymore, not even close. This is where selling pressure comes from. People don't leave because they hate the lifestyle. They leave because the numbers stop working. And when enough retirees hit that wall at the same time, listings pile up fast. The Villages was marketed as predictable, affordable retirement living. But in 2026, predictability is gone, and affordability is under serious threat. And when retirees feel financially squeezed, the housing market feels it first. Topic 3. The aging out problem nobody wants to talk about. The Villages wasn't just built for retirees, it was built for a very specific age window: active, healthy, socially mobile adults in their late 50s to early 70s. For decades, that formula worked perfectly. But in 2026, the math behind it is starting to break. Here's the uncomfortable reality. The Villages is aging faster than its replacement buyers are arriving. Many of the earliest residents moved in 15, 20, even 25 years ago. That means a growing portion of homeowners are now in their late 70s, 80s, and beyond. At this stage of life, priorities change. Golf courses matter less. Accessibility matters more. Proximity to specialized healthcare becomes critical. As residents age out of independent living, homes don't just stay put, they come back onto the market, often all at once through estate sales, downsizing, or moves to assisted living closer to family. That creates a surge of listings that isn't driven by fear, but by biology. The problem is timing. These homes are hitting the market simultaneously, while the incoming buyer pool isn't growing at the same pace. New retirees today are more cautious, more price-sensitive, and more uncertain about long-term healthcare and insurance costs. And unlike past decades, today's retirees aren't all cash-rich. Many are dealing with smaller pensions, volatile retirement accounts, and higher living costs everywhere, not just in Florida. There's also a lifestyle shift happening. Younger retirees are more likely to want walkable cities, mixed-age communities, or locations closer to adult children. A massive age-restricted development doesn't appeal to everyone the way it once did. That doesn't mean demand disappears, but it does mean demand narrows. And when demand narrows while supply expands, prices soften. Sellers compete, concessions rise, and must-sell listings start setting new lower price benchmarks. This is the kind of pressure that doesn't reverse quickly. You can't pause aging demographics. You can't delay estate sales, and you can't force younger retirees to want the same lifestyle their parents did. The Villages is facing a structural challenge, not a temporary slowdown. And housing markets don't bounce back fast when the underlying population math turns against them. Topic 4. Out-of-state retiree demand is drying up. For years, the Villages depended on one thing above all else: outsiders bringing money in. Retirees from New York, New Jersey, Ohio, Michigan, and Illinois sold high-priced homes, moved to Florida, and paid cash. That steady stream of equity-powered buyers kept prices climbing, even when the national market slowed. In 2026, that engine is sputtering. Home values in feeder states have cooled. Some markets are flat. Others are declining. That means potential buyers can't extract as much equity as they expected, or can't sell quickly enough to move at all. At the same time, interest rates remain elevated. Even retirees who plan to finance part of their purchase are now facing much higher monthly costs. Fixed incomes don't stretch the way they used to. Buyers hesitate. Deals fall apart. There's also growing awareness of Florida-specific risks: insurance instability, rising HOA fees, climate concerns, healthcare capacity. Media coverage has shifted. Florida is no longer viewed as a simple, safe retirement bet. It's seen as higher maintenance and higher risk. That perception matters. When buyers hesitate, they delay. When they delay, listings stack up. And when listings stack up, sellers blink first. Another issue: competition from other states. Retirees are increasingly choosing alternatives: Carolinas, Tennessee, Arizona, even parts of the Midwest, where housing costs, taxes, and insurance feel more predictable. The Villages isn't competing against other Florida communities anymore. It's competing nationally for a shrinking pool of cautious retirees. And here's the key shift. Retirees are no longer rushing. In the past, buyers feared missing out. Today, they fear overpaying. That psychological flip changes everything. Instead of bidding wars, buyers wait for price cuts. Instead of quick closes, they negotiate aggressively. That pressure doesn't show up in headlines immediately, but it shows up in listing data, time on market, and seller behavior. The Villages was built on constant inflow. When that inflow slows, even slightly, the entire housing ecosystem feels it. Topic 5. New construction is making the problem worse. One of the biggest mistakes markets make before a downturn is building as if demand will never slow. The Villages is a textbook example of that risk. And in 2026, the consequences are starting to show. Construction never paused. Even as interest rates rose and buyer behavior changed, new homes kept coming online. Developers assumed the retirement wave would absorb everything, but now, new builds are flooding a market already dealing with rising resale inventory. That creates direct competition. A homeowner trying to sell a 10 or 15-year-old house isn't just competing with neighbors. They're competing with brand new homes offering incentives. Builders can offer closing cost credits, design upgrades, and financing perks that individual sellers simply can't match. That forces resale sellers into a corner. To compete, they cut prices, or they sit. And when they sit, other sellers panic and undercut them. This is how price declines accelerate. Not because demand vanishes, but because supply overwhelms choice. There's also a quality gap forming. Older homes in the Villages often need updates, roof replacements, HVAC systems, flooring, accessibility modifications. On paper, these homes might look affordable. In reality, they come with tens of thousands in deferred maintenance. Buyers see that and hesitate. Builders, meanwhile, have another advantage: scale. They can afford slimmer margins. Individual retirees cannot. A seller who needs to move, for health, finances, or family, will always lose a pricing war with the developer. And the more new homes that come online, the more resale values get capped. Even if demand improves slightly, prices can't rise meaningfully, while fresh inventory keeps resetting the ceiling. This is especially dangerous in a community like the Villages, where appreciation was once assumed. Many homeowners planned retirement finances around rising values. When appreciation stalls, or reverses, that planning collapses. New construction was supposed to fuel growth. Instead, it's magnifying the downturn by keeping supply elevated at the worst possible time. Topic 6. Why this isn't just a temporary slowdown. Supporters of the Villages often argue this is just a pause, a brief correction before prices rise again. But that argument ignores something critical. The pressures facing the Villages are structural, not cyclical. Interest rates may fall eventually, but insurance costs won't. HOA fees won't reverse. Demographics won't reset. Aging residents won't get younger. And new construction won't magically disappear. This isn't a market waiting for a rebound. It's a market adjusting to a new reality. For years, the Villages benefited from perfect conditions: cheap money, rising home equity elsewhere, stable insurance, and a massive generation retiring at once. That alignment is gone. Now retirees are more cautious, costs are higher, risks are clearer, and the lifestyle appeal isn't as universal as it once was. That doesn't mean the Villages will empty out. It means prices must realign with affordability and demand. And realignment usually means downward pressure, not sideways movement. Another issue is timing. Many residents bought near the top. If prices slide even 10 to 15%, psychology changes fast. People who once planned to stay forever start watching the market closely. Some rush to sell before it gets worse. That behavior creates feedback loops. More listings lead to longer time on market. Longer time on market leads to price cuts. Price cuts reset comps. New comps pull values down further. This is how a controlled slowdown turns into a prolonged correction. The Villages isn't collapsing overnight, but it doesn't need to. A slow, grinding decline can be just as damaging, especially for retirees who rely on home equity as a safety net. The warning signs are already here: rising inventory, falling momentum, growing costs, and changing buyer behavior. Ignoring them doesn't make them disappear. The Villages was built to feel permanent. Markets aren't. Topic 7. Healthcare strain is becoming a silent exit trigger. One of the least discussed pressures in the Villages housing slowdown is healthcare, and it's quietly pushing residents out faster than most people realize. The Villages was designed for active retirees, not advanced medical needs. That distinction matters more in 2026 than ever before. As residents age, healthcare demand rises sharply. more specialists, more frequent appointments, more emergency care. But healthcare infrastructure hasn't expanded at the same pace as the population, or its aging curve. Local medical facilities are stretched. Appointments take longer to schedule. Specialists are harder to access. Some residents report traveling significant distances for advanced care, especially for cardiology, oncology, and neurological services. For retirees in their 60s, that's inconvenient. For retirees in their late 70s and 80s, it's a deal breaker. This is where housing meets reality. When health becomes unpredictable, proximity to family and top-tier hospitals becomes more important than amenities. Golf courses don't matter when you need daily care. Recreation centers don't help when mobility declines. So people sell, not because they want to, but because they have to. This creates a specific type of selling pressure: non-negotiable listings. These sellers aren't waiting for the market to improve. They need liquidity now to fund assisted living, move closer to children, or transition into medical care environments. That kind of seller accepts lower prices. As more residents reach this stage simultaneously, listings increase regardless of market conditions. This isn't speculative selling. It's necessity-driven selling. And that kind of inventory doesn't disappear when rates fall or sentiment improves. Another factor is caregiving. Many retirees assume they'd age in place. But when caregiving needs increase, family often lives out of state. That forces relocation. And relocation means selling. Healthcare strain doesn't show up in listing data directly, but it explains why listings keep rising even when prices soften. It's a demographic pressure that compounds everything else. The Villages wasn't built to fail, but it also wasn't built to support an aging population at scale, and that mismatch is now feeding directly into housing market weakness. Topic 8. Investor and speculative buyers are quietly exiting. The Villages isn't known as an investor hotspot, but that doesn't mean investors weren't there. During the boom years, a growing number of buyers purchased homes with one plan: rent them, flip them, or hold them for appreciation. In 2026, many of those investors are leaving. Short-term and seasonal rentals have become less attractive. HOA restrictions tightened. Insurance costs exploded. Maintenance costs climbed, and rental demand softened as retirees became more cautious with spending. Margins disappeared. When appreciation slowed, the entire investment thesis collapsed. Investors don't hold emotionally. They exit when returns drop, and they exit fast. That adds another layer of supply to the market. Unlike owner-occupants, investors price aggressively. They're willing to undercut comps just to get out. That resets market expectations and pulls prices down for everyone else. There's also a psychological effect. When residents see investor-owned homes sitting or selling at discounts, confidence drops. Homeowners start questioning their equity. Some decide to sell earlier than planned just in case. That accelerates inventory growth. Another issue is financing. Investor loans often have higher rates and stricter terms. As rates stayed elevated, holding costs increased. What once felt like easy cash flow turned into negative monthly carry. For many investors, selling, even at a loss, made more sense than holding. And here's the key point. Investors are usually the first to leave and the last to return. Once they exit, liquidity drops. Transaction volume falls. Price discovery turns messy. The Villages relied heavily on confidence. Investors quietly pulling out erodes that confidence behind the scenes. While residents focus on lifestyle changes, investors focus on spreadsheets, and the spreadsheets no longer work. That doesn't crash a market overnight, but it removes a stabilizing force. When demand weakens and investors disappear, price declines become harder to stop. Topic 9. Price cuts, longer listings, and the psychology shift. Housing markets don't turn when prices fall first. They turn when behavior changes. And in the Villages, that behavioral shift is already underway. One of the clearest signs is price cuts. Homes that once sold in days are now sitting for weeks or months. Sellers who initially list at optimistic prices are forced to reduce. Some cut once, some cut twice. Others quietly pull listings, hoping conditions improve. But many relist later at lower prices. This pattern matters because it resets expectations. Buyers now assume price cuts are coming. They wait. They negotiate harder. They submit lower offers, knowing sellers are under pressure. That flips leverage completely. Time on market is another key signal. Longer listings tell buyers there's no urgency. That kills bidding wars. It also creates a sense that something is wrong, even if the home itself is fine. This is how psychology drives price declines. Sellers who expected appreciation start watching neighbors struggle to sell. Fear replaces confidence. Some rush to list before prices drop further. That surge of listings adds supply at the worst possible time. Meanwhile, buyers grow more selective. Cosmetic flaws become deal breakers. Inspection demands increase. Credits become standard. Concessions that were unheard of during the boom become normal. This isn't a crash, it's a grind. And grind downs are dangerous because they last longer than people expect. Each price cut becomes a new comparable sale. Appraisers follow comps, not hope. Lenders tighten. Sellers lose leverage. Once that cycle starts, it's hard to reverse without a major surge in demand. And that surge simply isn't visible in 2026. The Villages isn't immune to market psychology. It's just late to feel it. And now that sentiment has shifted, the market is adjusting accordingly. Topic 10. What happens next? And why this matters beyond the Villages. The Villages isn't just another Florida community. It's a bellwether. What happens here matters because it reflects how retirement-focused housing performs when demographics, costs, and demand shift all at once, and the lessons extend far beyond one zip code. Short-term, the most likely outcome isn't a sudden collapse. It's a prolonged correction. Prices drift lower, inventory stays elevated, sellers compete, buyers remain cautious. Some homeowners will be fine. Those who bought long ago and plan to stay may ride it out, but others, especially recent buyers or those needing to sell, will feel real pressure. The biggest risk is false confidence. Many residents believe the Villages is different, that demand will always return, that retirees will always come. But markets don't care about reputation. They care about affordability, supply, and buyer psychology. If costs keep rising and demand keeps thinning, prices must adjust. This also matters nationally. Retirement communities across the U.S. are watching the same trends: aging populations, rising insurance, healthcare strain, and shrinking buyer pools. What plays out in the Villages will influence planning, development, and pricing elsewhere. For homeowners, the lesson is simple. Understand your numbers. Don't rely on past appreciation. Plan for flexibility. For buyers, patience is power. In markets like this, waiting can save tens of thousands. For investors, the era of easy appreciation in retirement housing is over. Cash flow, risk, and exit strategy matter more than ever. The Villages isn't crashing because of one factor. It's adjusting because everything changed at once. And when that happens, housing markets don't bounce. They recalibrate. What's happening in the Villages isn't random. And it isn't over. This isn't about one bad month or a seasonal slowdown. It's the result of rising costs, shifting demographics, slowing demand, and growing supply colliding at the same time. And once those forces line up, housing markets don't snap back quickly. For years, the Villages was sold as a sure thing, a place where prices only went up and retirees never stopped coming. But markets don't run on reputation. They run on affordability, confidence, and timing. And in 2026, all three are under pressure. If you own here, the worst mistake you can make is assuming the past will protect you. Know your numbers, understand your true costs, and don't wait for headlines to confirm what the market is already signaling. If you're thinking about buying, remember this. The best deals don't come when everyone is optimistic. They come when sellers are competing, listings are sitting, and leverage has shifted. Patience matters more now than ever. And if you're watching this from outside Florida, pay attention. Because what's happening in the Villages is a preview of what many retirement-heavy markets may face next. If this breakdown helped you understand what's really going on, hit the like button so more people see this analysis. Subscribe and turn on notifications for real housing market updates without hype. Share this video with anyone considering a move to Florida or already living in a retirement community. Drop a comment below. Do you think the Villages rebounds, or is this the start of a longer correction? Stay informed, stay ahead, and we'll see you in the next video.